Do you know where the largest prison escape of World War II took place? We'll hang around and we will discover together on this week's episode of Nomads Unplugged. Andrew here from Nomads Unplugged, where we are interested in tips, trips, tools, toys, and particularly tech for big lappers and adventurous road trippers. Today we're heading to Cowra, but on the way we're dropping in at Bradman's birthplace and the Captain's Walk at Cootamundra. Ballarat, you've got the Prime Minister's busts. But in Cootamundra, you've got the Captain's Walk. Steve Smith, Shane Watson, one test. Michael Clark, Ricky Ponting, Adam Gilchrist, 6 testers captain. Steve Raw, I'm not sure that's a great likeness. Anyway, Mark Taylor, born in Leeton, which is where I was born. The great man, Alan Border, Kim Hughes, Graham Yallop, Greg Chappell, We'll turn off the GPS while we're looking at Barry Jarman, 1968. That's before my time, I'm guessing. Bill Laurie. Bill Laurie as the nose from Bill Laurie. Ryan Booth, 2 tests. Robert Simpson, this will be interesting. Captain 64 to 68 and 77, 78 when he came back during World Series cricket. The recovery of cricket. Neil Harvey. I think that's my dad's favourite cricketer. Richie Benet, very famous Q for Q. Donald George Braitman with the stumps. 1948. Warwick Armstrong, so he's a pretty famous captain. There's a bridge named after him in Victoria on the way to Bendigo. And Johnny Muller, 1868, the leading Aboriginal player in the first Australian cricket team to tour England in 1868. And then we're starting on the inside circle now with Tim Payne. So he doesn't have his stats. And obviously there's more to go. This is what you get when your local team is in the grand final. The Murrumburra Mill Silo Art in Harden, Murrumburra, is by acclaimed Melbourne-based Mongolian street artist Hisko. The western side artwork reflects the gold rush period of 1858 to 62. The gold discovered in the region was based on sluicing and gold panning. Sluicing is a process of running water down a slope into sluice boxes where the gold is trapped. In the background of the gold panner mural are campsites with gold prospectors busy carrying out work on sites around running creeks, which is where the majority of gold was discovered in the Hilltops region. The eastern side artwork is a mural about Australian rural life around the late 19th and early 20th century. The young boy ploughing the soil reflects the involvement of children in the work carried out on family farms. The female workers show some women employed in the manufacture of flour, particularly retail packaging. The flour produced by the mill was promoted as Allsop's Silver Spray Flour and won over 25 awards. It's estimated that in 158 years of a flour mill at Murrumburra, over 2,200 people were employed. The mill worker depicted carrying a bag of wheat reflects the high portion of manual work that was carried out at the flour mill. One such employee was Nick Rawlin, who holds the record for the most bags of wheat carried in a single day. He carried 3,000 bags. At 80 kilograms per bag, that's 240 metric tonnes. Hisko began the artwork on the eastern side in January 21, completing it by the end of February 2021. The western side was completed in October 2022, also by Hisko. The 2 large bushies playing musical instruments to the left is an indication of how the gold prospectors entertained themselves. A statue of Bill the Bastard, who is the horse, in Murrumburra, Harden. So it commemorates what was considered the greatest horse of the world out of the 200,000 Australian horses sent to the Middle East. He's 17.1 hands high with a long back and big rump. So one time his rider was Major Michael Shanahan, rode into battle and picked up 4 injured Australian soldiers and brought them back. Major Shanahan was later shot in the leg and lost a leg, and Bill the Bastard was shot twice but survived. Really good. Really good. The next stop on the Olympic Highway between Cootamundra and Cowra is the town of Young. The Lambing Flat post office opened on the 1st of March 1861 and was renamed Young in 1863. Young is marketed as the cherry capital of Australia and every year hosts the National Cherry Festival. Long vehicle parking and toilet facilities are available at the old Young station. Next stop on the Olympic Highway is Cowra, home of the Great Escape. Definitely go via the information centre.
Do you remember me telling you about an escape by Japanese POWs back in 1944? Well, it took ages for the truth to come out because the government censored the news.
It's well worth spending 10 minutes at this presentation of a 3D image of a young war bride telling of the escape and the impact on the town of Cowra itself.
Capture. Most Japanese prisoners gave false names for fear that news of their capture would reach Japan and shame their families.
More than 1,000 Japanese men were interned at the 12th Australian Prisoner of War and Internees Camp in Cowra, New South Wales. In the early hours of a frosty morning on the 5th of August 1944, they broke out of the camp.
Having resigned to die, a fanatical, bloodthirsty mood engulfed the Japanese camp. Finally, it was decided to attack the perimeter fence at 2 a.m. the following morning and to die in action with honour.
It was the biggest mass escape in World War II and one of the bloodiest in history. The escapees clambered over dead bodies and barbed wire. For many of the Japanese, it was a suicide mission and a final chance to regain lost honour. During the event, 234 Japanese prisoners died and 108 were wounded, and 3 Australian guards were killed. An officer was stabbed and killed during the subsequent hunt for escapees. Over 300 men were recaptured in the 9 days after the escape. So what happened was, this group here attacked a gun post that was just there. So there were 200 suicide Japanese soldiers, and then 300 more tried to escape that way, with hundreds more that way as well. The guys who went into this road didn't get out at all, but a lot of these guys got out, and some of those guys got out and were eventually captured. You can see the main centre road from this aerial shot, and those small shrubs are of the periphery fence. Overlaid here is the historic map with the escape points marked by the red arrows and Private Hardy and Jones gunpoint marked with the circle. The Cowra prisoner of war camp. A map of the camp, which is really large. So this path just here is that path just down to here. And then see how it turns off to the right. That's this bit here, which means that it continues right through to about where that shed is in the distance. So I don't know if you can see, there's some small trees in the distance. So it's just to the left of that shed, and they go down to the basically the valley down here. So that was the perimeter of the prisoner of war camp. So physically, a really large area covered. And I wonder if this is something that the prisoners of war have to worry about. But I'll not keep my eyes out because I'm a little susceptible. My wife refers to these as my safe thongs. She says that they're so ugly that nobody will ever steal them. First escape. So the camp was first constructed for low security non-military internees, and the fences were low, around 5'6". In April 1943, Lieutenant Masao Naka was admitted to B Compound Hospital in poor health. Mentally confused, he attempted suicide by jumping out of a toilet window at ground level. Finding himself at the fences, Naka escaped and was captured the next day attempting to hitchhike to Sydney. The Japanese had been brought up to believe that any form of surrender to the enemy was intolerable. One of the interesting things was that some of the Japanese were injured or sick and weren't able to participate in the escape. So they either, before the escape commenced, they either committed suicide or asked their comrades to kill them because they'd rather die than stay as prisoners. Rather than submit to capture, a soldier should either use his last round of ammunition on himself or make a suicidal attack on the enemy. At 2 p.m. on Friday 4th of August, the commander of B Compound advised the senior Japanese POW of the plan for splitting those Japanese POW up. The Japanese, whose internal and mental torment had increased steadily to an almost intolerable degree, had been plotting some sort of violent, suicidal gesture for a long time. The decision to separate them provided the trigger, and 12 hours after they were told of it, the prisoners began to break out, which would cost 231 Japanese and 4 Australian lives. During the breakout, over 330 Japanese POW escaped beyond the outside perimeter of the camp, so that's beyond that fencing down there. Unaware of their position, disorientated by the sudden, often bloody release, and confused by a lack of organisation and leadership, they were confronted with the stark reality that they had nowhere to go and were ill-equipped for survival in enemy territory. A number of Japanese escapees who arrived at local farmhouses were treated kindly by Australian families and were provided with food and drink. However, many chose to die rather than risk recapture. Suicide also offered the opportunity to honour their Senjinkan military code of death before surrender. 2 prisoners died after they had laid their heads on the railway tracks outside Cowra in the face of an oncoming train. Some pleaded to be reshot on their capture. So these buildings here are likely those buildings down there. Baseball bats, iron pipes and axe handles that were used as weapons. A number of knives and improvised weapons. You see about 500 POW crossed into Broadway in 2 ways. Broadway, named after the lights on Broadway in New York, this 700 metre long and 45 metre wide access area was flooded at its entire length. And that's what we're in here. So it would have run all the way to the shed in the distance. Sorry, the shed in the distance. And then back up here. So the main escape route for the 500 was into this path and then heading north, not that way. But none of them got out. So when the breakout commenced at 2 a.m, it was actually signalled by Hajime Toyoshima, who sounded his bugle, and then the cry of Bonzo went up. And this is interesting because Toyoshima was the first Japanese prisoner of war held in Australia. His plane had crashed on Melville Island, having participated in the first air raid on Darwin, and he was captured by some indigenous people on Melville Island. So there you go, with a link. So looking at the trees being the fence line, this must have been about the spot where the group of 200 Japanese POWs made the suicidal attack, or suicide rush, on the gun emplantment. So 2 a.m, imagine that, crazy. And I think I'm going to be attacked by a magpie. Do you guys want me to go? On the Privates Hardy and Jones, so they were too young for World War I and too old for World War II. And they were the ones who were overrun by the 200 escaping Japanese POWs. There you go. Hardy and Jones were overwhelmed within 5 minutes and killed. Later it was suggested the guns had been incorrectly mounted and badly sighted, but Hardy managed to disable the gun before they were overrun, so it couldn't be used by the escaping POWs. So if you're coming through Cowra, this is definitely worth a visit. I mean, it's a bit of Australian history that we didn't ever hear much about. I had no idea that over 200 Japanese soldiers had been killed, I guess mostly by machine gun fire, in New South Wales during the Second World War. And I guess the bravery and the societal or influences, that caused them to escape, or to attempt to escape, rather than bring dishonour to themselves and their family. It's just amazing. Anyway, put this on your list. Sadly, Charles Shepherd was also killed, but was never recognised as dying in the line of duty, so his wife received no government pension. And without access to a pension, she was forced to give up all 3 of her children to foster care. These 4 panels depict aspects of the Cowra prisoner of war camp over its 6-year life from 1941 to 1947. The Australian soldier on guard, Japanese playing baseball, Italians and their love of music, and the Indonesian mothers and their children. A lot of Italians held here as well. So this is dedicated to the Italian soldiers. The Italians trained local tradesmen on a range of work, including plumbing, bricklaying and metalworks, opera and plays, part of a prisoners without guard scheme. In addition to the Japanese and the Italians, about 1,200 Indonesian political prisoners were held at Cowra. On the hill above the old POW camp sits Cowra's water reservoirs. Completed in February 2023 by artists The Zookeeper, Drapple and Brightsiders. One of the tanks features an Indigenous theme, whereas the other relates to the town's history, specifically the POW camp that operated between 1941 and 1944. The top photo was taken from up near the water towers. I've inserted a photo of the water towers in the bottom photo for reference. Driven to the Cowra War Cemetery, and all along the route there are these cherry blossoms, and I was wondering what they were, and they've all got plaques at the bottom, and they were planted in 1988, and there's 1988 of them, and they were funded by donations from Japan. So on each tree there's a plaque at the bottom that has the name of the Japanese donor and the name of a Cowra student. There we go. What a great idea. So this is the Cowra War Cemetery. It contains 27 war graves from the Second World War, 26 Australian soldiers and 1 member of the Royal Air Force, 5 Australian Army casualties of the Second World War and 1 from the First World War are buried in the Cowra General Cemetery. The 4 Australian soldiers killed in the Cowra breakout are in this cemetery. This is the Cowra War Cemetery, and there's the Christian cross on some of the headstones. These 2 have the George cross on them, so this is Hardy and Jones, who were killed on the 5th of August during the Cowra breakout. This is Shepherd, who was also killed wasn't awarded the George Cross, and his wife got no pension. So this is the Japanese War Cemetery in Cowra. The cherry blossoms are all just blooming. It's early spring. And we've got here the names of the Japanese and the dates of their death. Geez, a lot. In the 50s and 60s in this section. I wonder if they were local Japanese who were interned during the war. Look, unknown Japanese airmen. Unknown Japanese airmen from the 4th of April 42. Unknown Japanese airmen. So I wonder if this is from the bombing of Darwin in August 1944 from the Cowra breakout. And here we go, 5th of August 1944. So this is people, Japanese prisoners of war who died either at the hands of the Australian guards, or at their own hand, or at the hand of their comrades, preferring death to dishonour. So I've used Google Translate, and this says either Japanese War Memorial or Japanese War Dead Graves, September 1964, which is the small print down the left. Another site worth visiting while you're in Cowra is the Cowra Japanese Garden. While I was in Cowra, I stayed at the Caravan Park, which is located on the edge of the Lachlan River and an easy walk to a couple of supermarkets in the middle of town. Facilities were clean, it wasn't overly crowded. Enjoyed my stay. So I hope you enjoyed this visit to Cowra and the site of the largest POW breakout of the Second World War. Remember to subscribe and like, and hope to see you next time. See ya!